What up, gamers? Barnes here. And this is going to be a flip through and first impression of Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, which is now officially 5th edition. Alright, so here we go. I had some of the other books out so I could do some comparison. I looked through it a little bit. I haven't had a chance to read it. I did get a little bit time to flip through it at dinner and a little bit just a little while ago, and we're gonna flip through it together. And I haven't had a chance to read it, but I've had some impressions. So let's start. First off, I got the book for $43.16 at Barnes & Noble in Kingston, New York. It was 20% off. I'm not sure why. It's a promo. Alright. So I'm not sure how long that lasts. But it normally retails for, in the United States, $49.95. So $50 in the US, $58 in Canada. I'm not sure what it's going on overseas, but if you have those conversions, you can do those. So the book is printed in the United States, which makes me happy that some of my fellow Americans are working somewhere, and I can contribute to them working. It's I think it's over 300 pages long. Yeah, it's about 315 or 314, depending, whatever. 312. It's got a bunch of appendixes, but here we go. So it's got a full cover, hardcover, full color hardcover. There's no border like in previous editions. The second edition had a border. There's no border. It's just picture on the front, and I thought this was kind of interesting that they decided just to put D&D Player's Handbook, and I think that's their way of saying nobody else could do that. Nobody else could just put D&D or just PF or whatever on the front of their cover, and people would know what it is. So I think that's them just saying to the role-playing community, hey, we're D&D. And it's got Dungeons and Dragons down here, and then it says everything a player needs to create a hero character for the world's greatest role-playing game. World's greatest role-playing game is obviously an opinion. And so this is glossy, and the texture is smooth, you know. And then over here, it's a little rough on this. There's a little bit of texture there. They decided to go with this odd pattern here, and they use that throughout the book. The binding just has Dungeons and Dragons in white on top of that red pattern that they're using, that weird pattern. I'm not exactly sure what that is. And it just says Player's Handbook and then the ampersand down there. So they're showing off the ampersand a little bit. They're saying, hey, we're recognizable by a piece of punctuation or an ampersand. So here we go. Again, there it is, the ampersand. I thought this is kind of cool. They have the full painting here, or full illustration. A little bit about it. Then it has a disclaimer. Let's see if we can read this together. Not sure if you guys can. I'll just read it to you. Disclaimer: Wizards of the Coast is not responsible for the consequences of splitting up the party. Sticking appendages in the mouth of a leering green devil face, accepting a dinner invitation from bugbears, storming the feast hall of hill giants, of a hill giant steading, angering a dragon of any variety, or saying yes when the DM asks, "Are you really sure?" And so, usual information. First printing August 2014. Based on the original game by E. Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, with Brian Bloom, Ron Kuntz, James Ward, and Don Kay. And then I think they list everybody that I think's pretty much ever worked on a D&D book. I'm not sure if that's what's going on there, but I think they do. Lead design Mike Morells and Jeremy Crawford. Player's Handbook lead, Jeremy Crawford. Rules development, Rodney Thompson, Peter Lee. Writing, James Wyatt, Robert J. Schwab, Bruce Cordell. Art director. Let's see what else is in here. Wayne Reynolds did some art. Let's see. Am I seeing Jeff Easley? No, I'm not seeing him. I'm not seeing Brom. Lockwood. I'm not seeing Lockwood either. Let's see who else is in here. I am seeing Claudio. So Claudio, if you're watching, maybe you could tell me which drawings you did. I'd like to check that out. Maybe I'll just send it to you or whatever. So here's the contents. And it's got, let's see, three parts. Got an introduction, part 1. Which pretty much deals with character development, building. Part 2, I think, has to do with how to play the game. Part 3 is magic, and then there's appendix A, B, C, D, E, an index, and character sheets. There's a preference by Mike Merles, a little introduction which I haven't gotten actually to read yet. I kind of skipped this part because I figure it's all kind of the same. I did read this, that was interesting. Specific Beach General. Then we get to part 1, and there's this full color illustration here. There's some computer generated imagery in here. I believe that's computer generated imagery, I'm not sure. And it seems to be like a collage with some picture and drawings and computer generated imagery and mixed. And then there's a full color drawing. Step by step, choose a race. There's 1, choose a class. There's quick build rules. This is the character Brunar that they use as an example. General stuff, hit points and dice. Basically telling you over here, so charisma measures confidence, eloquence, and leadership. I don't really know if those are game terms or what. They say it's important for a bard, sorcerer, and warlock. I thought that was interesting, but I'll get to that later. Describe your character. That's cool that they put that in. They put a little bit more emphasis on. I actually didn't read this. I should read this proficiency bonus because this is just throwing up the whole mechanic off me, but I'll get around to it. These are really just the, I've only flipped through it a couple times, so I haven't really had a chance to sit down with it. And choosing equipment, come together. Tiers of play, they've got some examples of tiers of play, which is basically the first 4 levels, then the next 6, then the next 6, then the next 4, which is, this is a concept I use in my own games, except I do 6, 7, 6, right? 6, 7, 7? 6, 7, 7? Yeah, 6, or 7, 6, 7, that's what I do. First 7 levels, and the 13th level to the 20th. I noticed some things. I'll get to that. Another illustration, the races. Alright, so they go into the races, and they break the races up into common races and uncommon races, which I felt was cool. Each race has this like background thing and this little illustration here. And so it equals out to be like a page and a half of written material. As far as I could tell, there is more fluff than in other editions. Well, the previous couple editions, I guess. I didn't really read 4th edition. I just kind of followed it and didn't like it. But there's a page and a half, 3/4 of a page here. They do give you some examples, like a hill dwarf and a mountain dwarf, some variants, so if you want to use those or more specifics. Drugar is mentioned here. Or Drugar. I'm not even sure how to pronounce that. Elf, I have a little quote from Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. The Dragons of Wild Twilight. And again, it's a little background there. Background of Elf Place, I guess. And Dritz Durand is in here. And I think that this is being launched with Forgotten Realms, I'm pretty sure. By looking around, I know that I've seen a couple other campaign settings mentioned, but I think for the most part it refers to Hidden Wood Realms. Yeah, for the most part I think it refers to Forgotten Realms. I think that's going to be the launch setting. I kind of refrain from really giving any opinion about 5th edition or next or whatever the hell you want to call it until it came out, because I didn't really know what the hell I'd be talking about. So it seems like there's a little bit more right up on the elves, and then in previous, or right up on the races. In previous editions, seems like they got a little bit more space in the book. Another full color illustration, which is nice, but you know. Gives you dark elf variant, wood elf. So it does have a couple sub races. High elf mentioned, I think, in the majority of the races. Halfling. You know, it seems to be like there's traits, and that's halfling traits. I don't know. Stout, Lightfoot. Humans. A quote from Elaine Cumming, daughter of the Drow, in there. Variety of all things, usual stuff. Lasting institutions, exemplars of ambition, yada yada yada. Human traits. So I think there's some examples actually from Forgotten Realms in here. Or that's the Fey run. So I think, which one's the Fey run? The Flannis and the Fey run. I get them confused. It's been so long since I've indulged in any campaign setting. Human traits. Dragonborn. So these are uncommon races now. They had 4 common races, right? Halfling, dwarves, elves, and humans. And now they have uncommon races. The Dragonborn. Pick your dragon ancestry, I believe. And they brought gnomes to an uncommon race. And yeah. They got a couple pages. Again, they mention a couple sub races like forest gnomes and rock gnomes, and they give you some stats, I think, at least it appears that way. Half elves, half elf traits, half elf names. All the pages are laminated. I figure I mentioned that. The chapter's marked on these little things next to the page number. Looks like the text is a little bit bigger than in 3rd edition. But about the same as it was in 1st edition, I guess. And there's a lot of illustrations. There's no border on the pages. Half-orcs. Tieflings made it. Tieflings made it into core races. But no Asmir or Aasmir or whatever. And then there's classes. And the classes are Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. So Warlock's in there that I'm not usually... well, maybe it was in 4th edition, but it wasn't in any of the other ones. And here we go. And so Barbarian. And I really don't know the dynamic of the game. I don't know the mechanics. I've never played it, so it's kind of hard to tell me exactly what all this means, even though I've read some of the special features of the Barbarian without a firm grasp on the mechanic, which is something I guess I might as well mention now. If you're like me and you're looking for something to add to your table and add to your game that you already play, this is not. This is a different game. Like, I feel like I was looking at Thaco or whatever when I first looked at it. It looks like it's a different game. I'm not sure, but it initially reads like kind of like a different game entirely than what I'm used to seeing D&D, even what 4th edition was, at least on the surface. You know, and I had to actually read it to know that for sure. But my first impression is that it's a different game, kind of. The mechanic is different. I haven't actually read the mechanic. Somebody out there will explain that to me, I'm sure. But basically, you know, what I'm looking for is maybe I could steal some of these, put them into my game, some of these special features, and then maybe I can make clans using the different special features or factions or whatever. Another thing I noticed is that a lot of they present a lot of archetypes, I've noticed, and everything seems to have some kind of like variety, like path feature, like you get to choose some different kind of SQ, and yeah, it seems like there's a variant for each class almost. The Bard made it. And there's a write-up for the Bard. So this is something that I've noticed. This proficiency bonus is for the same for every class. I'm not sure why they did that. And I think the ability score improvement is the same for every class. And I think it's just the normal D20 table kind of deal, you know, where the ability scores go up. But they moved the last ability score increase to 19th, which kind of makes sense, because if you make it the 20th, who the heck is playing more usually? I mean, I would if I made it with some players, but whatever. I'm not going to start a campaign at 20th level. It's got some Barded College, again, different type of paths you can choose. The Cleric, not seeing anything really different about the Cleric. There's cantrips. Yeah, so I'm not seeing a whole lot of differences. There are these tools proficiencies, which I'm not exactly sure. It seems like there's less skills than there was in previous editions. I think they have quick build rules for everything. Domains for clerics, it seems like. Yeah, there's domains for clerics. I'm not sure if I'll be able to throw this into one of my D20 games or not, but it's possible. The druid, seems like they gave each class a little bit more of a write-up too, but I'm not sure. Seems that way. Druid's cantrips, I don't know if that's really crazy or anything. Mentioned about sacred plants and wood. It's interesting. Druid circles. The arch druid. It's kind of a title and ability all at the same time. Ritual casting. Druid circles. Goes into druid circles, which I think, yeah, these are SQs or features, class features, I guess. The names may be taken from something though. Circle of the Moon. They might be Forgotten Realms. I'm not a Forgotten Realms expert. I'm not really any D&D setting expert, but Realms isn't my favorite, I guess. So I'm not an expert on it. Fighter, I took kind of a quick look at the fighter. Still got 10 hit dice. I didn't really notice many hit dice changes except for Wizard seemed to go up. I think the one more. Maybe the Bard went up. but I mean it's similar to Pathfinder.